This week on Waxing the Porpoise, G-Baby and the usual suspect Steve examine all manner of high-elevation strangeness involving a murderer's row of different phenomena and paranormal happenings that have been said to be associated with and or have occurred at Northern California's Mount Shasta. Join us as we wax mountainside on Speculation Station about some of the lore associated with Mount Shasta, including but not limited to magnetic anomalies, the Count of Saint Germain, the lost continent of Mu and its connections to Atlantis, UFO sightings, the I Am movement, stargates, and much more. If you thought we couldn't help but devolve at some point, fear not. We'll also touch on projectile vomiting and the most effective method of smuggling the club brand cocktail in a can, both in a movie theater, aka the show environment. The porpoises, midnight companions and keen observers, dare to embrace the dance of the mind and summit this peak where both the veil and air thins and robot grandma beckons you to shit on flypaper. Let's wax this elevated porpoise.
Chase, don't do that.
You see, we working on his brow chakra. We're just back at the crown chakra.
So, yeah, Sesame Street Land. We're going, it's in, is it Camden or fucking Hoylestown or something? It's like some, like, up, I think it's like northeast of Philadelphia. It's a suburb on the outskirts of Philadelphia. So,
did you say Camden, as in Camden, New Jersey?
No,
as in
there's
the murder capital of the world.
No. It's in Pennsylvania. There's a suburb I think called Camden or something close to that. I'm probably misremembering it, but at any rate, we're going there for. It's a 5-day trip. I think we have 3 days, maybe 4 at the park. But I think we're gonna stop through Pittsburgh, maybe somewhere on the outside of Pittsburgh, spend the night, split up the drive. But yeah, it's 10-hour jaunt.
And it's for a Sesame Street
Land.
Winchesterton, Fieldville.
Yeah. Schuylkill Township. We get to cross the Schuylkill River, which I'm pretty excited about.
And you're sure you're not being lured to your death?
Yeah. Dude, and then when we come back, we bought a fucking new Pekingese that's down in it's in Birdseye, Indiana. Like bumfuck. It's down near Santa Claus, Indiana, where they have the world's largest slip and slide and Holiday World. Dude, it's dope. Or I've never been, but it looks really dope. We're gonna go. But I get to go through if Dick Dog's listening, I get to go through French Lick, Indiana. The Mecca, the birthplace of Larry Bird.
Home of.
But yeah, so 10-hour Sesame Street Land, come back. Then the next day, I'm going down solo mission to pick up this dog that's, I think it's 4.5 hours away. So 8-hour round trip. That's a full day driving with the new pup. Then Oppenheimer, 3 hours. And then we're podding on Orca. So it's going to be a fucking packed week. Pretty excited.
I pray for your cock.
Call the vet because these puppies are sick. It's my favorite shirt my brother-in-law Carl got me. See? It says Carl right here. Yeah, so that should be fun. All right, we ready?
Yep.
Engage. Here we go. All right, welcome back to Waxing the Porpoise. We are back again. Episode 80. Oh, fuck that. Episode 68. My dyslexia kicked in right there. Mount Shasta high elevation strangeness is what we're talking tonight. As usual, you got myself, Jim G. Baby.
What do you think of me?
I don't rightly know, sir.
Make an assessment.
I think you're a nice
Modern gentleman.
Don't lie to me, boy.
And of course, we have the usual suspect, Steve.
That was our first date. You pulled me up with your strong arms.
Oh dear. Look.
I've never seen that horse shit.
No, you've never seen old Greg?
No. I just had to hear you and all of our other coworkers like quote it in little chunks every day for years. So
7 years.
I didn't feel the need to go watch it.
I gotta send you the link. It's pretty great, man. It is real good. God, that's your only exposure is just hearing people pop it off secondhand.
Yeah.
Dude, that one that's one of the ones from Biggie that's indelibly branded in my mind too. The you pull me up with your strong arms. That and Noma.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a few of those that I could not hear for another 1,000 years, and it would be too soon.
Him whistling like a bird. So you got a tank, you want to fight about it?
Yeah. But yeah, good to see you.
All right. Yeah, so we're back. This is another kind of funky episode where we're talking about something. It used to be local to me. I used to live in Northern California for my whole life, but so this is kind of a one close to us, a local landmark that I learned a lot about this. I feel ashamed that I lived so close to it and I knew fucking dick about it, basically, other than it's like, oh, it's Mount Shasta. It's a big ass fucking mountain and you can go snowboarding on it, skiing, whatever. There's like tons of shit I fucking had no clue, which was pretty cool. Is that similar to your experience, or did you know a little bit more going into this?
So I actually used to live in Redding for a couple of years, which is even closer to Mount Shasta from where you and I lived or currently live. And even living pretty much in the shadow of Mount Shasta, I only ever heard a little bit about, a Bigfoot sighting in the past or a couple Bigfoot sightings, UFO sightings. And then later on, I started hearing more about the sort of hippy-dippy crystal, like spiritual vortex idea. Mm-hmm. No idea what that even meant because I just stopped listening at spiritual vortex and crystals and all that. So reading
the Crystal City.
Yeah, so reading more about it for this episode, I also had the same thought, like, oh shit, I didn't realize there was so much more lore surrounding it, and it's pretty much in our backyard, and it's thankfully a lot more interesting than the spiritual vortex.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of like pretty concrete stuff, just like if you take the conspiracy and all the mysterious, like the unsolved mystery kind of trappings to it, there's a lot of like just interesting shit that I was not privy to. But then when you pile on, like you said earlier, when we were talking like the buffet of different kinds of phenomena and things that are associated with it, it's kind of overwhelming, to be honest. But we don't have any shortage of things that are associated with Mount Shasta that I think we'll get to talking about. I don't know if we'll go super deep on any one of them, but I think just like the breadth of all the things surrounding it will make for good convo and just kind of wrap about. So have you ever climbed or hiked or been up to Mount Shasta besides like a ski trip or like a snow day kind of scenario with your family? Or
I haven't.
Okay.
No.
I've only been there. Well, I've probably been there maybe a baker's dozen amount of times to go snowboarding.
Okay.
And I think that's it. I think I may have gone when I was younger, maybe some like distant memories of just like a snow day at like base camp and like fucking tobogganing and maybe cut down a tree or something like that. But I've never hiked this. We've had friends. There's a breast cancer fund. Is a breast cancer fund, or just it's like a ceremonial kind of trek where people will go up and hike the mountain that our company is involved with. A lot of people do it for just to see if they can do it. I didn't realize it was this fucking tall, but it's like one of those, they call them 14ers.
Yeah. So it was a fundraiser essentially for breast cancer prevention charity, and yeah, so it's a 14,000-foot mountain, which is pretty good. I mean, the one closer to me is called Mount Lassen, and that's a pretty tall one, and that's only 10,000, but even that's pretty significant. I think Shasta's the tallest mountain in California. Is that right?
I want to say it's like the tallest west of Colorado, but I could be wrong. I feel like Mount Rainier or Mount Hood maybe give it a run for its money, but I didn't. Yeah. I didn't focus on that factoid, which I should have. But I know it's a top.
In California. I think it is.
Yeah, 14,179 feet. Let's see.
And I'm wrong. It's Mount Whitney.
Oh, yeah. It's the 5th highest in California.
Oh, really?
Fifth highest peak in California.
Was 34th. Way off.
Yeah. 34th nationwide. 96 in the world. But yeah, it's fucking huge. And it's also interesting. It's got like a smaller, like a satellite cone or peak called Shastina. I don't know how tall that one is, but they're very close in proximity to one another. I think, what is it? 12,000 feet is Shastina. But, in preparation for this too, I noticed one thing that pissed me off, or it was just kind of a tick, like people commenting on this and talking about Lake Shasta, that they inflect it like Shasta. Oh. I'm like, that's so gross. It's Mount Shasta. Come on. Or maybe we're saying it wrong, but fuck it.
You know what's my version of that? It bugs the shit out of me is if you're on the West Coast or west of, I don't know, the Continental Divide or whatever, it's Nevada. But when you hear people say Nevada, it just Nevada. I hate it. Yeah. I can't stand it.
That is a good example.
One thing that's cool about Shasta, at least visually, is it's not just a mountain in a giant range that just happens to be the tallest amongst. It sort of stands alone, so it makes it look even more kind of cool against the backdrop.
Yeah, and I saw some things that were that point to it being kind of semi-anomalous, like for where it's placed at, and I guess it is part of a range, but like you say, it's not connected like tightly or like super closely, because I guess it's part of the Cascade Range or the Cascade volcanic arc, but it is kind of like when you see it, when you're on, if you go up I-5, Interstate 5 or Highway 99, which is the main thoroughfare that goes from Mexico to Canada, and you're going due north basically, and you see it up on the horizon, it's very stark, and especially when there's a shit ton of snow on it and it's like a bright sunny day, like it stands out like a motherfucker. Like it's a prominent thing. But yeah, it looks like it just kind of pokes out and there's nothing else like around it. But and it's actually also it's considered active, even though I don't think the last I don't know what the fuck that term is.
Activity or eruption or
something like that. I think it was like 1700s or late 1700s was when it actually spewed.
I saw a bunch of different estimates of the last. Yeah, I saw at least 3. One was like 3,000 years ago. One was 1,000 years ago. I don't know. Okay. I mean, but you can see why.
It's been a long time.
But there have been tribes in the area for 10,000 years plus. You could see why it would be such like a focal part of their existence. Like, what the fuck is that? I don't know. Let's go check it out.
Yeah, like being a primitive tribe and like you say, there's like I think the Klamath tribe, it's like 7,000 to 10,000 years, and then there's some other tribes that maybe predate that up to like 13,000 years. Yeah. And they have this like equilibrium with the land, and they've had that long to like be around it, and so you have no shortage of their religion and culture and spiritual lore that's been passed down through ages and ages and ages of oral history. And one thing I saw too that was really interesting that I've never heard of from anyone was, did you see anything about this thing called Petroglyph Point?
I did see something about that just when looking into this. I'd never heard of that prior to this. And if you look at it on a map, it's not super far away from Mount Shasta.
Yeah.
It's sort of in that northeast corner of California, but yeah, pretty interesting stuff.
Yeah, I had never heard of it. I thought even like growing up in like grade school, because you live like regional kind of stuff gets discussed usually. I feel like that would have been a good example, like like in 5th grade history or 6th grade social studies or something, that would have come up in association with it. So that was a big one that jumped out to me, like because they have like carvings and like these crazy cave inscriptions, and people have interpreted like that. I'm sure we'll broach at some point through this, like the sky people. That all ties in with like Lemurians, which we'll get into, like the giant skeletons that may or may not be Bigfoot. And, that one was like, that jumped out at me like, whoa, that's fucking cool that's like right in your backyard, like those kinds of things I associate with like ancient Egypt and Fertile Crescent shit like that, so that was pretty cool to learn about that. I don't know where to get started here. I guess a couple cool things before we get off into the hippy dippy, the weird shit, is that Mount Shasta is known for their lenticular clouds. Those are pretty common. I think it's to do with the climate, the region it's in, the height, because this thing like dips up into the sky, like when you're at the peak. Have you ever seen there? I think there's a famous dude who takes pictures. One of our mutual friends had this really dope, like framed professional photo of Mount Shasta with these lenticular clouds. They look like UFOs. These big, round, fluffy fucking, like, it looks like they've been shaved, like they're shaved ice, kind of. You know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
And they're stacked kind of like pancakes. Just right there, it's like you could see how someone, like, especially ancient peoples and stuff, looking up to the sky and seeing like, oh, like, it looks like a ship or some kind of flying thing. But yeah, if you're not familiar with a lenticular cloud, like do a quick googe of lenticular clouds, Mount Shasta. It's pretty rad natural phenomenon. But so I guess like a quick point by point rundown of what's involved. I saw aliens, Bigfoot, giant people, unexplained disappearances, connections to Atlantis and its Western counterpart, Mu, Telos, the inner Earth, stargates, energy vortexes. There's like no shortage of things that are associated with this.
Do you believe in UFOs, astral projections, mental telepathy, ESP, clairvoyance, spirit photography, telekinetic movement, full trance mediums, the Loch Ness Monster, and the theory of Atlantis?
If there's a steady paycheck in it, I'll believe anything you say.
It's weird too, like growing up, especially in this area, never really hearing any of that. Yeah. Was all this pretty new, like just like the volume of weird shit that's associated with it?
Yeah, I didn't even have like 1/10 of the knowledge that I saw looking into this. You forgot to mention lizard people and robot grandma.
Dude, robot grandma, I can't wait to talk about that. That's a super interesting instance. I guess that's kind of one of the first things that I heard once I got into Missing 411, David Paulides, like, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. And one of the stories that jumped out was the Cappy, the robot grandma story. But I don't know, for whatever reason, I remembered it differently. And the fact that it was at Mount Shasta didn't jump out at me when I heard that. So coming back to it, I was like, oh, fuck, that was at Mount Shasta. I thought for some reason it was like Great Smoky Mountains or somewhere in Appalachia that took place. So
you want to just start with that one?
Yeah, let's start with that one. Yeah, I actually found, you can go ahead first, but I found an actual message board from 2012 where it's the grandma actually recounting the tale of everything. And some people have speculated this is where Paulides first caught wind of this and started researching it. And this was like on a private message board from, it's called Abduction or Imagination is Something in Our Forests. And it's from 2012, November 2012. And it's the actual, I guess it can't be verified, but this lady is claiming to be that grandma and talking about her story. I was like, holy shit, that's fucking crazy. So it's like maybe straight from the horse's mouth. But do you want to set us up on Robot Grandma first?
Yeah. And if you have additional details you'd like to add, feel free to cut me off at any time. But yeah, it's pretty interesting because this happened back in 2010, if I remember right. And it was this kid who was 3 years old. He was up there camping around somewhere on Mount Shasta with his family. And at around 6 o'clock at night, kid just disappears. Family turned around and he's just gone. Parents are looking all over for him. They can't find him for, I think, 5 hours or so. So when they do eventually find him, he's just lying in this like thicket of grass right off the trail.
In the fetal position.
Yeah, like right off the trail where they had been looking. So it wasn't, somewhere very far away that he had ran to. It was like, oh shit, if he was here the whole time, we should have seen him.
Yeah, another hallmark, if anybody's familiar of missing 411, that's one of the hallmarks is like someone goes missing very quickly, like you turn and they're gone, and then there's a massive search, and then they end up finding them like very close in proximity to where people had already searched thoroughly, and like it just seems really weird, like, oh, he was right there, kind of thing. But
yeah, so then, the parents are happy, the kid's safe, whatever, they bring him home. A few weeks later, the kid is playing with his grandma, and the kid turns to his grandma and he said, I don't like my other grandma, Cappy. Like, that's what he called his grandma's Cappy. Mm-hmm. So he's like, I didn't like my other grandma, Cappy. And she's like, what are you talking about? What's your other grandma, Cappy? And he said something to the effect of like, oh, well, don't you remember when I was lost in the woods? The other grandma, Cappy, grabbed me and took me to this creepy place, and she's actually a robot, and she took me down to this cave where there were spiders and guns, and I was scared, so I didn't touch anything, but she climbed a ladder, and it made her look like a robot, and there were other robots, but they were frozen. She made me lay down to look at my tummy, tried to get me to take a shit on a piece of paper, but I didn't do it. And
he couldn't. He was too afraid.
Yeah.
I would be too, man.
Yeah.
Your grandma's,
totally.
even if you thought dead to rights, this is my grandma, take away the robot shit, and it's asking you to shit on a piece of fly paper or like sticky paper, I'd be like, what the fuck's going on, Grandma?
So other Grandma Cappy also told him that he was from outer space and that they put him in his mom's tummy, and then when they were done trying to get him to shit on the paper and doing all this creepy stuff, other grandma took him back to the river and said, just wait here until somebody finds you. He also said to grandma, she had your same hair, your feet, and even your face. So grandma's like, what the fuck is this kid talking about?
Yeah, she said it was the poop. She's like, I get kids have an imagination and this and that, but she's like, it was the pooping on sticky paper that really makes me wonder. I've never seen a TV program that mentioned pooping on sticky paper or anything else like that. There are too many other details to list. It's like, yeah. That one would kind of stick out to me. Like, that ain't right.
Kids can be very creative. I will say, we have these neighbor friends of ours, and they have a kid. I think he's 5. And some of the shit that comes out of his mouth is bizarre. It's like, I don't know what YouTube videos or cartoons you're watching or friends that you talk to.
Yeah.
But yeah, he says some pretty wild shit. So who knows?
Especially this day and age, kids are getting fucking bombarded with shit. So that makes sense. Like this day and age and beyond, like the weirder shit kids can come up with. But yeah, I guess they've always been like that. They say the darndest things.
It's very true. Somebody should make a show called that. So, needless to say, Grandma was pretty shocked. And I guess she was talking to the kid's dad. And the dad's like, yeah, he said the same thing a few days ago. So it's not like he was just making it up on the spot.
Right.
He had talked about it before. But then she had this weird sort of revelation that she would have just chalked it up as a kid's weird imagination if it wasn't for a strange experience that happened to her a year ago when she was camping in that same area. And so her story is that she claims she woke up one morning face down in the dirt. Somebody had, or something had taken her from her tent and sleeping bag, and she had a puncture wound in the back of her head. And she felt sick all morning, felt weirdly like emotionless. She chalked it up to being maybe bitten by a spider, I heard.
Yeah, or some kind of insect or something.
Yeah, and she was there with somebody else, a friend who'd been sleeping in a separate camper, and that person also woke up with a puncture, bite, whatever, on his neck, also felt ill. And then she claims that she recalls seeing red eyes shining through the trees in their flashlights the night before, which they thought were deer. So I guess the logical inference to make, if you're going to connect those two stories, is that she was somehow cloned, or her body was, they made some sort of human facsimile of her to do God knows what. And then, I don't know, fucking weird. But
yeah, it made me think right away. Like, I've seen a ton of X-Files, and like, I'm probably more into alien stuff than you are, but like, I don't know if you've heard of like the, like one of the big overarching theories about like our contact with aliens and the reason it's being covered up, and that and like, you know, cattle mutilations and abductions and everything, is one of them is, you know, a hybrid kind of human alien thing that's been running for God knows how long in the background. And, you know, governments around the world have treatises and pacts with these aliens. Like, that was one of the first things I thought of, like, oh, maybe, yeah, it was like a DNA harvest, and to do like what you said, like maybe just clone them, but for what purpose, you know? It's probably folly to get too academic about it, but yeah, like, that's like, you tie those two things together and it's like, yeah, this weird robotic version, you have this weird, you know, I got stung on the back of my fucking neck, and like, I mean, those two things together, just in proximity and being in the same area, it's weird. I don't know if I put all my faith into what this lady's saying. I mean, this could just be a kooky grandma that's bored, you know, and she's having a good time with this. But some of the things the kids said too, I saw that we glossed over, is he mentioned the reason that he could tell, or that he thought that this second Cappy was a robot grandma, was when the sun danced off of her face, it kind of reflected and it was shiny, it was sparkly. So it made me think of, you know, like, oh, what it was like, they have some like holographic kind of shit going on, some like weird, like crazy technology, but that would make it look artificial to him. And one of the other things too, like how he mentioned he saw the other like robots maybe, or these clones, and they were like frozen in place, and they looked like people, but they looked odd to him. So maybe they're just like other vessels that are just waiting to do the same thing, like pick up people, and maybe they're harvesting, or they're doing something with these abductees, and they bring them in for a while and then kick them back out. And also too, like how he said he saw guns, like old guns covered with like spider webs and cobwebs, and like, you know, rucksacks and like backpacks and things like that. It made me think of, you know, how like sometimes people go missing, especially in the missing 411. Some of the weirder cases are where people go missing, and usually when people go missing, you'll find a trail of things, or you'll find an article of clothing, or their bag, or a gun, or things like this. And then in a lot of the hallmarks, depending on how much stock you put in missing 411, I know it's kind of, its popularity or credibility has waned the past couple years, but some of the hallmarks of those cases are they never find anything. Not only do they not find the person, but they don't find any articles of anything, which is super weird, especially when it's in like a known area. And how quickly they respond to it, they should find some articles of something or a gun or things that aren't fucking indestructible. So that made me kind of think like, oh, you know, they're getting fucking, you know, disappeared away into these little fucking mystical, creepy caverns and shit. And it's like, what if it goes back to like, you know, like the Donner Pass, like the Donner Party, and there's like old fucking guns from like the Civil War era and shit. Like, just kind of interesting to think about. But yeah, that's a weird fucking story. And I guess this is like, if you type in John Doe, Mount Shasta, the parents did well to like keep the kid's name out of the gate. They didn't want anything associated with him. So if you want to learn more about this or look at it, Robot Grandma Cappy, or John Doe, Mount Shasta, there's no shortage of speculation on this. But yeah, the red eyes shining through the trees too. That's a kind of a creepy detail. That would fucking make me shit a brick if I saw red fucking eyes. I mean, I haven't been camping. I'm not the world's foremost camper, but I've never seen anything like that. That would cause me to pause.
Yeah, my first thought would not be deer. It would be, is that a goddamn mountain lion? You know, because there's a ton of them up there.
Yeah.
And a deer is not very scary, but a mountain lion, they'll get you.
Yeah, they will. So what do you chalk this up to? Flights of fancy, or do you think there's any shades of truth to this?
I don't know. I think I'm just naturally a little more skeptical on this stuff. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it comes from just genuine skepticism, or if a part of it is just like frustration, knowing that we'll probably never really know the truth. So I try not. I just can't get too emotionally invested in stuff like this, because I feel like it's just never going to lead anywhere. So I don't really get into it that much. And yeah, maybe that's why I don't really like much sci-fi stuff in general. I just can't get into it as much. But I mean, who knows? At the end of the day, who knows? I mean, it's a very interesting story that it's either a very strange coincidence that they both had these weird experiences in the same place, or it's just a kid with a crazy imagination. But it's just one example of some crazy stuff that goes on up there. And one of the things that I found that I didn't even remember that I remembered was the story of a guy named Carl Landers who went missing up there.
Yeah. This is 1999.
Yeah. So I lived up there. It must have been like 97 or 98 or 99. It was right around that time. So I don't know if I heard about this at the time or if I heard about it since then. And it's just such a weird, I mean, there's not a whole lot to his story, but it's very weird for the reason you were just talking about, where, I mean, even if people get eaten by an alligator whole, or, you know, think of some other weird circumstance, they always find shit left behind, right? Whether it's clothing, blood, you know, whatever. But, yeah, so Carl Landers was up there. He's an older guy. I think he's in his 60s, but a pretty fit guy.
He was 69. Nice.
So yeah, him and a couple other old guys were up there, and I don't even think you can hike to the summit. I think it's all climbing of different, like, varying difficulty. But so these guys have to be in pretty goddamn good shape, and this is an example of one of those guys who he either dropped straight down through like a chimney or was abducted or something, because he was within eyesight of his two buddies. And that's right? He was within, and they just turned and he was gone, and they didn't find. Another
hallmark, I'm probably going to say it too many times, but another hallmark of these missing 411 deals is like, they're right within your close proximity. You spin your head on a swivel and look, and they're gone.
Yeah. Yeah, with no sign.
It's
of
like they just
anything.
hit a drop chute, like, and they fucking went straight down to the Earth's core or something.
And I mean, it's possible that there's some sort of giant crevasse But I mean, they searched for this guy, and they have been searching for this guy for 24 years. And in that time, they've never found anything of his or any sort of large hole that would explain, you know, a guy just disappearing. So it's just one more very weird thing.
Yeah, one of the ones that the things about this was interesting too was, I guess there's a couple different access points, I guess, to Mount Shasta, like to hike it and to climb it. And I guess the more novice, quote unquote, or the
less
easiest
technical, or
the easier path is the southern slope of Mount Shasta, but with the caveat, it's still even people that are in shape have quit and given up and haven't made it up, you know. So, but this guy in particular, he was, by all accounts, like an experienced hiker. He was in a running club. He was a very fit dude, even at 69. And the dudes he went up with were 64 and 60, respectively, and they were both part of the same running club. And I thought I heard secondhand. The source I have in front of me doesn't say, but I want to say that he had done this before at least once, so he had some sort of familiarity with the area. But it's just one of those things. Like, it's like vanish, you know, and there's no trace. That's it. It lends itself right there to wild speculation when you have absolutely nothing to go on. But it gives it credibility too when it's like an experienced person, physically fit, and then the two friends are corroborating that, like, we were all. You picture you go hiking with three buddies, you're not going to be a football field away from one another. You're going to be in a pretty tight pattern, you would think, you know, or even if you were 10 feet away, it'd be weird for someone to where'd they go?
I mean, even if you were. Because I saw different numbers as far as the distance he was from other people. Even if you're 300 yards away, that's really not that far visually. And you would hear, like, if he fell off the side of something or fell down something, you would think that you would hear somebody scream out or the sound of something. You know, it's not just they turned around and they didn't see him anymore, but they didn't hear anything, which... very strange.
And this also happened. This occurred on May 25th, 1999, which is, you know, may as well be summer for this part of California. So I'm sure visibility was like 1,000%. Like, there's probably few or no clouds in the sky. So it's not like, you know, there'd be more. I'd cast more doubt if they were hiking in like the dead of winter or even early winter, and maybe there was a storm or something that wasn't accounted for that. But going like late May, early June, like, it's visibility is probably excellent.
Yeah. I mean, just kind of, I hadn't thought about this until just now, but even if it had been late summer, that might also explain snow melting. But if it's May, you know, it's probably still pretty snowy up there.
Packed pretty good, yeah.
Yeah, so it's funny, my dad and I were on a hike one time, and it was up at Lassen, and it was, I think, late May, probably early June, so the snowpack was really just now starting to melt in earnest, and the trail we were on still had a bunch of snow on it, and we were going over these snow bridges where you don't realize it. You're just walking on a snowfield, but you don't realize that there's actually like a snow melt, like a river underneath where you're walking. So, like, you know, as it melts, it finds whatever the low point is. So if you're very unlucky, you could just be walking along in the snow, go down, and now you're just in a death snow river, whatever. And he's telling me about this as we're walking over this shit.
How old were you?
This was a year ago. And
okay. I pictured like little 10-year-old Steve.
Oh, no. But he's way more like delicate, and he's just like gently walking along the top of the snow. and I like every step I'm taking is up to my thigh, and I'm just like falling all the fuck over myself. And he's like, yeah, people, they'll just fall straight through and they'll never be seen again. Like, thank you.
Nice parenting.
I wasn't cursing at you. I was cursing at the lady. Nice parenting. Hey, thanks. Are you my therapist? Take a walk.
Damn. Quick.
Yeah.
How about a sausage McMuffin with hash browns?
Total mind blow. Yeah, I'd be like, cool.
Can you save
Thanks
that for when we're back at the car?
Yeah, seriously. Well, now that you say that too, it's like maybe that adds to like the more rational mind. Like maybe it was just as simple as something like that,
Yeah, but they would have found something when the snow melted.
Yeah.
You would think anyway. Maybe not.
I mean, it is a huge fucking area. So if that happened and he got swept away by some like underground snow melt, who knows how far he would have gone, and what if it would have emptied out into like an area where it got covered up very quickly and he's just under like 6 feet of earthen material, and that's why, and it's just that simple. But yeah. That's one of the big ones when you look up like strange disappearances is Carl Landers. Yeah, there's a bunch of like, just at the quickest glance you look, and there's, I think since 1986 there's been 12 just completely vanished individuals from Mount Shasta.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's crazy. There was another one. I didn't have time to fucking jot it down, but there's another one that's kind of a heavy hitter that's mentioned up along with Robot Grandma and Carl Landers that was interesting, but alas. So I guess we should probably get into some of the weirder shit. One of the ones that jumped out to me was a fella named J.C. Brown, which, I mean, we're not treading over any new territory here. You can find information about this guy, but did you happen to stumble across this in your research?
Oh yeah. Yeah. The Lemurians. This is where I get a little more dubious.
Yeah.
But it's still interesting. So
yeah.
Yeah.
This is one that definitely my unexplained feels started tingling like crazy. But then as you go along too, it's just like, all right, you're saying a lot of shit that can't be corroborated right now, but it is pretty interesting. Do you know where this starts? I think this is, what is this, like 1910?
No, so it goes all the way back to
1890s.
Yeah, actually it goes back to the 1860s, and a zoologist who published an article about lemurs. So he was a very fun guy, and he was talking about how he found fossils of lemurs in Madagascar, which is an island off the coast of Africa, and India, but not in continental Africa or the Middle East. So from that, he concluded that there used to be a supercontinent that we later called Pangaea, but he called it Lemuria because of those lemurs. So that's the origin of the term. And then, so the concept of Lemuria began to appear like in the works of other people. They just sort of adopted the same thing, and people started looking for the missing link in that same area. It is funny to think 1864 is really not that long ago in the grand scheme of things.
Oh yeah, it's a drop in the bucket.
Yeah, so it's funny, like, up until then they still didn't understand plate tectonics, or who the fuck knows. Maybe they'll look back at our time in 150 years, and I'm sure they'll
think we're so fucking primitive. Yeah,
yeah, I have no doubt.
That guy, by the way, is Frederick Spencer Oliver, and he published a work called A Dweller on Two Planets, which So this is where the Atlantis connection comes in. Like it's like two sides on the same coin is like Lemuria. How we think of
just before somebody red pens you, the zoologist I'm talking about, his name's Philip Sclater. The gentleman you're talking about,
that predates this guy. That's right.
Yeah, but the guy you're talking about is an author, and that was in 1899, and that's Frederick Spencer Oliver.
Right.
Just before any big zoology buffs out there write in some hate mail. And yeah, so
dude, what is that part from Friends? Like they're fighting over like the remote or something, and Ross is like, "Tough noogies, we're watching the plains of the Serengeti."
Yeah.
I just flashed back to that one the other day. It was awesome. Tough noogies.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but the idea is that some 25,000 years ago, Atlantis and Lemuria were the two main. This sounds
powers.
So stupid. Like even just reading it just sounds so stupid. But
yeah, we're getting wild right now.
Yeah, so the theory is 25,000 years ago, Atlantis and Lemuria were the two most, or maybe two only, highly civilized civilizations on Earth, and they started battling with each other. And through the course of thermonuclear warfare, it created a worldwide flood. Which, I mean, that's kind of interesting because I think every major religion, on Earth, they all tell the same similar story about a massive flood. So, I mean, that's kind of interesting, but they could just be sort of reverse engineering this myth based on that shared thing.
Lore or mythos. Yeah, it's like, how do you pinpoint which, maybe this is the one, and then all the other stories surrounding it, they have their own interpretation, or if this is just one in a long line of interpretations, of why this flood occurred, even if this global cataclysmic flood even occurred, the way that they're outlining it. But yeah, it is.
If you want to play some serious mental gymnastics, you can think about this. So, in the Christian Bible, it talks about the worldwide flood, Noah, all that shit. There are other texts that predate the Bible that also talk about a worldwide flood and attribute it to some other whatever. And if you were to ask like a Christian practitioner about that, they'll tell you, well, some might not. They'll tell you that that information is a test of your faith. So there's all this weird, cognitive dissonance where it's like, oh, this story that you find in the Bible, well, the same story was told like 4,000 years earlier in some other religion. It's like, well, yeah, that's a test. Like, all right, well, God, yikes. I don't know how you have a discussion with. Excuse me.
Yeah, it's they got something to stonewall you at every turn.
Yeah.
It's attached to your rod, mother liquor.
God damn. Yeah, okay, so in this battle between the Lemurians and the Atlanteans, the idea is that the Lemurians were losing, so they decided to retreat to Mount Shasta, of all places. Is that right? Or was that...
Right, that was their... So, like, it seems like they had some kind of stalemate or something, or like they realized... This is my interpretation. They realized that they had fucked everything up, like completely, like mutually assured destruction. And they both kind of retreated into like, I don't know how much of Atlantis ties into Inner Earth, but there's a lot of similarities there. But so Atlantis had their back door ostensibly either under the fucking sea or into the Inner Earth, and they called that Agartha. And then Mount Shasta is also called Telos, and that was the Lemurians like, this is our escape hatch, like this is our back door where we can abscond to. And I saw numbers like 60 million plus Lemurians were killed in this flood war, ongoing raging war battle. And I guess it actually, it's the dude, Frederick Spencer Oliver, who he talked about the dweller on two planets, claimed that, or talked about the lost continent of Mu, and there's accounts of that in like indigenous, like Native American tribes and stuff, talking about that, and how it was actually like Hawaii was much bigger, and that's like the tip of this huge lost continent. So they were like kind of mirroring each other on opposite coasts, I guess, if you think Atlantis, and then off in the Pacific you have this big huge landmass that has now sunken underwater and ostensibly gone inside the earth. But I think that's maybe where at that time they thought it was connected to North America, and so they retreated to Mount Shasta became Lemuria, like the Lemu. There's a bunch of different phrasings of that to see how the language broke down. But yeah, so it became, so Mount Shasta, Lemuria, Telos, those are all the same thing, and then Atlantis is Agartha, and so they went inside. And then, I mean, we're not even going to talk about inner Earth beyond that, but that's a whole other bag of cats too, if you want to go down that rabbit hole. But I think some of the stuff that J.C. Brown talks about seeing is supposed to be tied to this ancient Lemurian civilization. And that's where it's interesting, where, you know, you hear accounts of giants, this elder race, and then there's, you know, in the same spot, there's talk of like seeing Bigfoot and all these kinds of things. Maybe it's just the same thing, and then they're attributing it to these other, just like how every tribe and every civilization has some kind of like major apocalypse story or flood story. Maybe they're one and the same. Because it makes sense. They're talking about giants, this advanced race, and then Bigfoots are these big giant fucking things. But so J.C. Brown, go ahead.
I was just going to say, so in the early 1900s, the British prospector J.C. Brown that we're kind of alluding to, he claims that he found, I saw it described as a door, which I think is funny, but some sort of passage underground at Mount Shasta that he claims he walked 11 miles through this cave system, and he when he gets to the end, he finds some sort of tomb. It's full of gold and shields and mummies, and like you were saying, somewhere 10 feet tall. Mummies. And he finds a ton of crazy stuff in there, but he sort of hides the entrance, doesn't tell too many people about it for a few years, and then eventually he starts assembling a group of people to come check it out. And ultimately he gets together a group of 80-something people, and the day they were supposed to go...
Stockton.
Yeah, Stockton, California. Beautiful. But it just so happened that the day they were all supposed to go check it out, he disappeared, never to be seen again. So could that be the act of a charlatan on the run because he knew his time was short, or could he have been taken out because somebody didn't want him to show other people the mysterious door under Mount Shasta?
I'd be curious to see if he collected payment from those 80 people. Like if this was like a con situation, like, I'm getting together this expedition. He regales them with his story, and it's like, we're going to go there. We're going to find all this stuff, and pitching him fame or money or whatever. But I wonder if he collected funds, like, $500 all inclusive, like to do this expedition, and then just fucking, it was just merely a money-making scheme, and he grabbed that and came up and like went out east or something.
I mean, that would make sense. One of the things I was reading said, I mean, it couldn't have been a scam because he didn't take a dime from these people. It's like, well, how do you know that? That was so long ago. I mean,
I
if
found
somebody
people
gets, if somebody gets scammed, they might not necessarily be super apt to tell other people, like, yeah, we all got duped. They might be like, no, we didn't give him any money. It was just supposed to be an expedition. Like the shame factor.
All 80 of you gave this guy your life savings on the promise of 10-foot giants in ceremonial garb 11 miles under the earth. Yeah. I mean, I see a lot of people that seem very pro and like almost apologist for JC Brown. Like they'll say that, he had all this stuff and he mysteriously vanished the day they were supposed to go and he never took a dime. Like he wasn't in it for the riches and this and that. Like he had no reason to make it about the money. It was about the discovery and sharing this with the world or whatever. But yeah, another thing he said he saw in there too was like the pièce de résistance was this ancient tomb, like a ceremonial tomb that was arranged with 27 skeletons ranging from 7 to 10 feet tall. These giant people or whatever, the remains of this ancient city. So yeah, I mean, right on its face, like if it was legit, like he really did disappear, that's pretty interesting. It seems really on the nose though. Like if you're trying to take someone out, it's like that's the time and place you choose to do it. Why wouldn't you do it 3 Tuesdays ago when it had no significance with it was the same day he was supposed to go on an expedition to expose all this, with 80 people. So I don't know. It's hard to judge, and it was so long ago, but
I mean, it is Stockton. So for those of you unfamiliar with the region, I think Stockton, it used to be anyway, it used to make the top 5 most dangerous cities in the world.
Yeah, like per capita, like highest crime rate, and
biggest.
Dude, I
piece
remember
of
that back in the mid '90s, hearing that, and like little factoids, like when you're watching Cops and shit, and they go to Stockton or a really rough area, yeah. I wonder what it was like back in the early 1900s, like 1930, 1940, if it's always had that kind of reputation. But yeah, that's one people talk about a lot in association with Mount Shasta and kind of the weird stuff inside. What else? Oh,
yeah. One thing I was reading was the city of Telos, which is the city built inside Mount Shasta, was designed to house 200,000 Lemurians. And I can't remember where I saw this, but the author said, today it is believed that Telos houses 1.5 million Lemurians inside Mount Shasta. I don't know where the fuck that number comes from or how you have the temerity to put that down in print, but I admire the moxie.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe they're just trying to make it stand out as a place, a point of interest, but I don't know.
Did you see any the tourism board?
Yeah. Did you see any of the weird stuff about talk about it being some kind of Stargate for the sky people and how there's a relationship, an energy vortex between the sun and this location at Mount Shasta, the X point?
Yeah, I did. I didn't really understand what they were saying. One other thing that I also thought was interesting, but also didn't understand, was they showed this sort of electromagnetic map of Northern California, and over Mount Shasta, there's a negative electromagnetic anomaly field there.
Yep.
So I don't know what that means, but it sounds cool. So
yeah, I wish there was a little bit more context to what that meant exactly. Is it super highly charged electromagnetism? And when they talk about these X points where it's the resonances or the places between the sun and the earth where the magnetic field is directly connected, quote unquote, an uninterrupted path of energetic particles. Some are rare, some are more stable and can sustain themselves. Yeah, I don't know what that means, and I feel like it's a leap to say because they're these two, like, I don't even know how you judge that they're directly connected to the sun, these electromagnetic fields. But then to say, then they start leaping to like, ooh, it's a star portal. It's like a dimensional rift, that you can use to like transport people, energy.
Like a wormhole.
Yeah. Like these are, like you think Stargate, like 94 with like Kurt Russell and like Egypt, and they have these crazy Stargates.
Never seen it.
It's like,
sounds dumb.
What? That's a sci-fi you probably actually like. Kurt Russell's in it, James Spader. It's pretty cool. It's directed by the dude who did Independence Day.
I'm listening.
Welcome to Earth.
That's what I call a close encounter.
So yeah, I wish I knew. They gave a little bit more context, like to what that means exactly, like that Mount Shasta being a negative electromagnetic anomaly. Like if you spread that out, is like that common globally, or anyway?
Yeah, I'm not even going to pretend like I know. I mean, it sounds interesting from like a scientific point of view, but I wouldn't even dare to try to explain. So I have a question for you, because you had mentioned this before, and I did a little bit of reading about it, but I couldn't find a lot of good stuff. The Count of Saint Germain.
Yeah.
So
are you? That leads in with this other guy that we should probably talk about, the Guy Ballard and the I am movement, which is pretty funky. And that leads to him, and like then we get to like, then it starts getting to like the New Age and the Ascended Masters, and yeah.
So from what I understand, the Count of Saint Germain is this interesting sort of historic enigma, if you will, who,
like fucking Bill and Ted.
Never seen it, don't care. Who, this person who just seems to show up at different points in history.
Right. Like Slaughterhouse 5, like he's popping in and out of, he's unstuck in time, but he's doing it at his will, and it's like to like maybe help or guide or shape the world in significant ways throughout, like there's some type of maybe greater plan. Or
okay, that's interesting then.
Yeah, I've heard it like, a bunch of different ways. Like he was at the signing of the Declaration of Independence, and actually even signed it, but I've never heard that before. And what name did he sign? Did he sign Count Saint Germain, or yeah, it's an interesting figure. It could probably easily justify its own episode or like series of stuff to break down. But yeah, it's kind of like just like this immortal quasi cosmic kind of being that can pop in and out like drop, drop, drop. And in this instance, this guy Ballard said he met and encountered this being that called itself, it was like blonde hair and like this celestial creature, humanoid, and said his name was the Count of Saint Germain. And he mentored him and that's how everything that he learned, he incorporated into this I am movement, kind of like a Scientology. Seems kind of L. Ron Hubbard-y a little bit, like he got a lot of followers in an age without social media and like telephone and like the way you can network now. But he got his I am activity religious movement up to like, I saw like between 1.5 and 2 million followers at its height.
And he might be like top 10 creepiest looking dudes. This guy Ballard.
He kind of looks like an American Dracula.
Yeah, oh God, he does. He's got that like little widow's peak thing going on in the front.
Some fucking brows, dude. Like,
hey,
they're sharp.
Careful.
Yeah, I was gonna say they're pretty similar to yours. You got a couple caterpillars nesting on your eyelids.
How dare you? This is finally my time. I don't know if you've noticed that the young gals now, the trend is to have like the big, thick, dark eyebrows. Yeah, so everything's coming up Steve Dog these days.
Look out, ladies. Get in line, huh?
I'll just add an apostrophe.
Thicker eyebrows.
Yep. They love it.
You are the father!
Did you want to go into this guy a little bit more? Ballard and his wife, Edna?
Yeah, I mean, it's wild. And I don't know a whole lot about it. Just because...
Yeah, the Cliff's Notes is like he married his wife in 1916, and they studied theosophy and the occult, so they were kind of primed for this kind of thing. It's like you think about people who get into something and they want to believe it, or they stumble upon something, you know, which came first, and if it's like they're doing it in earnest, or if they're just deluded and they've just found something that they learned about and they've put all their chips on that thing. And I mean, right or wrong, you know, after meeting the Count of Saint Germain and learning the teachings of the Ascended Masters, he started putting out books, and he and his wife Edna started getting like a following, accredited messengers of Saint Germain. And then they came out with this compendium, I guess, called the Ascended Master Teachings. And there's even like, I don't know if you saw, there's still an I am, it's IAM, like a sanctuary, or like a little, like a
reading room.
It has like a physical presence at like the base of Mount Shasta, which I thought is wild in 2023. Like, it's still chugging along, but yeah, it's super wild. It all goes into like really like Gnostic and like New Age and like these really esoteric like teachings that are like, once we get get to that level, my interest wanes.
Yeah.
Like you think back to like the Hale-Bopp comet and the what's his Major Applewhite, all that kind of stuff. Like, start believing in some wild fucking shit. But yeah, that guy is heavily tied to Mount Shasta. So anything you look up, he'll be on the periphery. And I don't know where this factoid comes from, but I saw it, and Shasta's ranked. It's the top. It's the 13th out of 300 UFO hotspots in the world. I don't know how that's being tracked or assessed, but if it's just sheer, like, they're looking at pure reports of UFOs, like on a volume basis. If that's true, that's pretty interesting.
It is interesting, because you would think that like a more densely populated place would have more sightings, just by virtue of the fact there's more people there. So I wonder how they parse that out. I've also heard that Mount Shasta's on like the ley lines, and it's one of the Earth's chakras, and you know, just all the kind of like ancient aliens go-tos.
Who knows? Like, maybe there are specific points on the Earth, you know, and there's plenty of examples, but like, you know, like Stonehenge and stuff, where it seems like there's so many things that are associated with this one place, and they happen to line up, you know. Just standing back and looking at it on its face, it's like, yeah, there's reports like, you know, the sky people, there's an electromagnetic connection at this point, there's the negative anomaly, it happens to be on a ley line, you know, and in relation to these other points that have significance, you know, like it's interesting that a lot of those things stack up for this area, and I'd never even known about that before. But yeah, who's to say there's not weirder stuff that happens in a certain area on the Earth, but we just don't know how to explain it yet, or maybe it is unexplainable. It's one of those, it's just a weird part of nature in the universe. Fun to think about.
Yeah, well, I mean, hopefully we're lucky enough in our lifetime to learn a lot more stuff that, just imagine 100 years ago, 200 years ago, the stuff they didn't know. And what they're going to know 100 years from now, 200 years from now that we're too fucking stupid to know now. I mean, we're not going to be there to hear about it, but...
Yeah. Yeah, it is crazy. I mean, all it takes is a little bit of time and you're no longer like at the vanguard of things. Because when you're living in the present, it's always easy to say, like, this is the peak. It's like, well, yeah, it's either going up or down or staying still. But in the present, it's always going to feel like, because you're always looking right back at what was previous, Even from now to the 80s is such a huge jump. It's fucking nuts. Like computers that take up a wing and then you have the equivalent in your hand. Like, yeah, it's crazy. Did you see it? Did you ever hear about this? I missed this one in 2008. There was, I guess, a pretty credible UFO sighting. Had a lot of eyewitnesses, which is, it always lends credibility to these sightings when there's more people.
I don't think I know the one you're talking about.
Yeah, I don't know what it's called, but it was just, it happened in 2008. A lot of eyewitnesses. Of course, no photos. I know 2008 is like right when people started having smartphones-ish and having a phone in your pocket, but that one kind of jumped out. Tons of eyewitnesses, no photos, but one video came out later, and it's pretty fucking weird. It looks like a jello, like a jellyfish, like a gelatinous cube shape, and then it like moves in and it kind of adjusts shape, and it's real strange.
Maybe I have seen that.
Yeah.
Was it filmed from a plane?
I don't know.
I feel like
it
I
was
saw
pretty
one.
rough, but it wasn't like dog shit rough quality. Like you can make out this thing in the air changing shapes pretty clearly. I was like, oh shit, I'd never seen that one before. It looked pretty decent to me. But I guess that that ties in with other accounts of people seeing like these more ethereal kind of like, I think orbs were thrown around, but you've seen like the orb UFO shits.
Uh-huh.
Those are different. Some people said that it was more like ethereal and they saw it go into the mountain, adding to like the whole electromagnetic, it being a star chamber or some kind of vortex that it can, or there's like a, think about like holographics. Maybe there's some kind of crazy effect like that. And there's hidden openings into the mountain. But that's some of the accounts that I thought that stood out to me too about these UFOs, like people noticing them going into the mountain and not just flying around and zipping away like you normally hear or see. So yeah, I was like, whoa, that's fucking cool.
So do you know,
check out 2008 Mount Shasta UFO sighting.
So you obviously know more about this stuff than I do, but have you seen a pattern where, because Mount Shasta is a dormant volcano versus just a tall mountain, do you think there's any sort of connection between specifically volcanoes versus just other tall mountains? Or
are you getting along the path of like maybe they're monitoring places that are somewhat unstable or could be an issue, or there's just more like energy at that location or something? Or
no, I was just curious if in your studies you would come across any like correlation between like Kilimanjaro or K2 or Everest, which I don't think are volcanoes, but they're obviously huge peaks. If there's like
big landmarks.
If there's a lower occurrence of weird paranormal or whatever you want to call it activity at those, but a higher one at volcanoes for whatever reason you can think of, because maybe there's just more energy there for intergalactic Kagers.
Humanoid, you wish, bring a sponge. Dude, I love that line. He's just like, oh fuck, I gotta go clean up some sloppy ass jellyfish alien. It's gonna leak on me. Intergalactic planetary. Yeah. The only thing I can think is something I don't know, but the other thing I thought about was, you've heard about UFO sightings at military bases or specific types of, like over NORAD or over a place that's known to have like where like actual nuclear warheads are, like firing chambers, like specific areas that aren't advertised, that they've been over these places in maybe, an effort to monitor these really volatile areas of the earth, like they're guarding or they're like I've heard just wild shit, like if a nuke was shot out, or if there have been like testings that have gone wrong where aliens have interceded, like on behalf of humans, or they're looking out because they're protecting their investment. I mean, that's the long and short of it that I've heard, that would make me think, like, why would aliens be monitoring specific sites over, but maybe it is something else, like they're trying to harvest energy, if this is all real, or who knows.
Yeah, because you would think that if they were that advanced and they didn't want us to have nuclear weapons, they would find a creative way to just disable all the nuclear weapons on the planet with whatever their advanced technology is, right? Like a radiation blast or something that would disable whatever.
Well, I would think they're playing the long con, and something like that would be too stark or too knee-jerky of a... Because, like, if you think about that, like, what if tomorrow we woke up and it's like all the nukes have been, like, neutralized and by some unexplained phenomena, or this fucking ray of shit. It's like that would change the world overnight, like politics, like power dynamics. Like, I mean, I feel like something that big would be too stark, like, to...
But that's assuming
this game you're playing.
That's assuming they would tell the public. I mean, maybe it's already happened. I don't know if you've ever heard this theory.
That's a good point, dude. Because who really knows?
You're gonna love this.
Shit! Here we go.
I don't know if you've ever heard this, but there's a theory out there that there's no such thing as nuclear weapons. That the atomic bomb technology doesn't actually exist, and that's why they're talking about how, it's prescient with Oppenheimer coming out soon, because they're talking about...
I was about to say Oppenheimer. I'm about to watch that bitch.
I can't wait. So, dude, if you believe that, not to go full Jim on you, but if you believe that what we're told about nuclear weapons are true, that Hiroshima and Nagasaki should be uninhabitable for the next 1,000 years or whatever. Same with Chernobyl and the meltdown that happened there. But there have been people that have gone to all three of those places, and they're like, yeah, that's fine. And the thought is like, no, it's not nuclear fission or whatever creates the atomic bomb. It's just a huge amount of TNT that they use. So I don't know. Have you heard anything about that at all?
I've never heard that theory. Well, that's crazy.
Check it out. And the Earth is hollow.
That's awesome.
The Earth is flat and it's hollow. And
I don't think you can do that to Hollow Earth, though. I don't think Hollow Earth to be mentioned in the same breath as Flat Earth, to besmirch it. I won't. I mean, I will sit on the fence on a lot of shit, and this one too, but I feel like Inner Earth is more of like a... I don't know. I think it's a fun theory to think about, and it's like low impact.
Yeah.
Whereas if you start getting into the Flat Earth and like the fringes, like you're getting into a weird territory about how you carry yourself in life, like if you're thinking about Inner Earth in the same way, it's like, you're not, there isn't, because Flat Earth gets tied into the NASA and everyone's been lying. It's too much.
Yeah.
It's like, it's too far afield. Like, but Inner Earth is fun to think about. Like, there's been some weird stuff associated with that. And like the South Pole really interests me, like all the shit that like expeditions that have gone there, and that could be a whole episode in and of itself too. Talking about Admiral Byrd.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much weird shit out there. It's really hard to differentiate bullshit from interesting stuff, but
yeah, especially now when the access to all that information is just like the floodgates have been dumped on you. Right on. Have you ever heard of like the giant theory? Do you put any stock in that? Like I saw one thing that looked pretty credible, like out of Mount Shasta. I can't remember what paper it was, but it was like back in the early 1900s. They found and they photographed and they wrote an article in like the fucking Mount Shasta Herald or some shit, like bones of like, it was like an 8.5 foot tall humanoid skeleton that they had found. I don't know if that was doctored back in that day, but you hear about there's other sites around the world. Like giants could be a completely other episode too, but I think that starts getting weird where they're tying into like this not only global but like centuries old kind of conspiracy of academia and withholding knowledge, and that then it starts getting like really heavy too. But you know what I'm talking about? You've heard that kind of stuff?
Yeah, and I saw something about specifically at Mount Shasta where these people claim they found this Bigfoot footprint, and then they later found out that the people had faked it by using like their knuckles and their hands or whatever. Right. I mean, but that doesn't completely dismiss the idea that there are giant humanoid whatever creatures out there.
Maybe interdimensional beings.
Sure, whatever. I will say there's another fun, weird merging of Christian school teaching with unexplained evolution stuff where in the Bible it talks about like people in the old days used to live to be like 600 years old or 400, whatever. And the thought was that there was a giant layer of water in the atmosphere that kept the sun out. And so it allowed people to live to be, I think Noah was 800 apparently when he died. And then when God decided to flood the earth for reasons unknown to most people, that it removed that protective layer from the sun. And that's why people don't live as long now. So, yeah.
That's pretty fucking wild. I'd never heard that before.
And that's why we have the rainbow. That's what the Bible says, because that is God's promise to never flood the earth again. That's not a joke either.
Dude, I think I've talked to you about this before. I'm going to share my screen just real quick. And because you brought up religion, I guess we'll leave off on this note. I was in, what was it, like half a year? I was in a Seventh-day Adventist school, like Christian religious school in like 6th grade. And do you know anything about Seventh-day Adventists?
Yeah.
Like in general, or?
Yep.
Pretty wild. They believe in some weird shit. Like
they do church on Saturday, right?
Church on Saturday because they think there's an entire misinterpretation of like God rested on the 6th day. I can't remember what the fuck it is. It's something like that where they're like, your math's wrong. It was Saturday, not Sunday. Saturday's the fucking Sabbath, you know?
Yeah.
Which I was like, that's kind of cool because I go to church on Saturday and I have to fucking have it hanging over me with the Sunday scaries too. Did you have to go to church? I've never asked you this before. Did you have to go to church all the way growing up?
Yeah.
Or did you?
We had to go pretty much every Sunday up until, I'm trying to remember, it must have been early teens when I started to be a rebellious little piece of shit. And
was it a knockdown, drag out fight? We're like, I'm not going anymore. Or was it just like, okay, you're old enough. Do you want to go? Do you not? Yeah,
it was a fight. I can't really remember all the details about it, to be honest, but I do remember the first week where So they pass out communion, which in Catholic, it's different in Catholic and Christian churches, but I remember the first week where I just took it and passed it to the person next to me instead of taking it. And
People were like, Steven.
yeah, it was a big deal at the time, but
damn.
yeah, I don't remember if my folks ever just said like, no, you don't have to go, or
It just kind of faded away.
Yeah, to be honest, it was probably during my early teenage years when I decided to just argue with them about religion all the time. And after a while, they were probably just like, fuck it, stay home.
Yeah.
Have fun in hell.
The throes of your punk goth era.
Not goth.
Coal chamber.
Never goth. Coal chamber sucks. That's you. You're looking in a mirror.
It's like back when I was a kid. On a shrimp boat. You're from Milwaukee.
That's funny. I never thought to ask you that before. But anyway, back to Seventh-day Adventists. They're pretty kooky. So here, I'm going to share my screen.
I think they're also against dancing, right? If I remember right.
I don't remember dancing like crazy, like the wild, like running up and down the pews and like.
No, not like Pentecostal.
Okay.
Not like that. I mean, if I remember right, the Seventh-day Adventist church school I went to, when they would have dances, they would come around and not let you dance with each other.
Get too close.
Yeah, what is this?
Can you see that? This is so imagine this is like the size of like a Reader's Digest, and it's called the National Sunday Law: A Shocking Glimpse Behind the Scenes. Forces Unite Amid Stupendous Crisis by A. Jan Markison. So I remember by virtue of going to this Seventh-day Adventist school, like we were on the mailing list or whatever, you know, and like this came to our house. It was mailed, and I looked into it and I started flipping through, and it's just like, it just seemed like a religious kind of pamphlet thing, like trying to convert you or whatever, or indoctrinate you rather. But this thing was thick. Like it was like as thick as a Reader's Digest, and it read like an expose on, like, I can't remember if Zionism was involved, but it railed hard against like the Catholic Church and about like the papacy, specifically about how like saying they're like ordained by God and like that it's blasphemy, and that like the Catholic Church is actually the head of Satan. It's just disguised and like hidden in plain view. It was wild shit reading at 6th grade. When I was like 12, I was like, dude, what is this? I was like, make this a movie. Like, and I didn't really talk to anyone else about it. I just kind of like, oh, this is fucking weird. But thinking back on it, I've thought about it a couple times later in life. Like, there's some wild shit in that. Have you ever seen that or heard anyone talk about that? That it's National Sunday Law.
I don't think I've seen that particular pamphlet, even though it looks like something I would love to read. There is a gentleman in the town we live in who has a piece of shit camper, and in big bold lettering on the front it says Saturday is a Sabbath, Sunday is the mark of the beast, and it's like, ask me about whatever the fuck he's talking about.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's super wild. That I want to try to get my hands on that. I don't know how hard that would be able to. They'll probably have it on Amazon, but that'd be a fun one to like get a couple copies and look through and just talk about that book specifically and some of those wild with your religious background. Oh yeah, I'm sure that'd be fun. Be a fun panel. Have your dad on.
He would do it. I think he would do it.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. All right. Well, yeah, I think we did kind of definitely a Cliff's Notes of old Mount Shasta, but there's tons of stuff out there. There's much better descriptive accounts of each like individual thing that you can find out there. So yeah, let us know. What do you think? Has anyone heard of the National Sunday Law booklet associated with Seventh-day Adventists? I'm curious. It's very niche. Dude, that'd be a good one for old Chris to look into, I think, for Mount Molehill. I don't know if that'd be up his alley, but I could see him doing something crazy with that. But
that his new podcast is coming out pretty soon, right?
yeah, he just put something on Instagram. It's next week, so I'm pretty sure it's either the 27th or the 28th.
Okay.
So keep an eye out on any and all podcatchers.
Should be out.
Oh yeah, because this will release morning of the 27th. So yeah, strap in, check out all your podcatchers. Look for Mount Molehill. It's Chris, who's been on our show half dozen times, I guess. But he's a good hang, and I think he's gonna kill it based on his other show, Channel 83. Him going into like lost media and like just really weird, idiosyncratic kind of like investigations. It's like it sounds awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to that big time too. I'm looking forward to Oppenheimer. When are you going? Are you going this weekend?
I don't know actually. I want to go soon.
Yeah, it's opening weekend this weekend, or it's out today in select theaters, I think, and then tomorrow, Saturday. But yeah, I'm going to go the week after, I think, after the crowds thin out a little bit. Have you ever treated yourself to an IMAX seating at an IMAX theater?
I have, when I lived in Sacramento.
Yeah, they have a dope theater down there.
I can't remember what it was. Yeah, I was thinking the Oppenheimer might be a good candidate to go down.
Yeah. If ever a time, this seems like, this would be a dope one.
Because I heard something, you would know better than I would. They filmed the whole thing in IMAX, and it was like 11 miles of film, and it weighs 600 pounds or something crazy like that.
Yeah, I heard something nuts like that, yeah.
And you still haven't watched Peaky Blinders.
Yeah, I need to watch it. My time is limited, and stuff like that is like I've seen bits and pieces and heard clips. It's very violent and profanity laden, so I have to pick my spots. But
does that offend your delicate sensitivities?
Yeah, I'm way more up on fucking Bluey and Paw Patrol than I am with Peaky Blinders at the moment, but yeah, I'm psyched for Oppenheimer. 3 hours though.
Yeah.
Yeesh. Which means 4 with previews, getting there, coming home. It's a jaunt.
Yeah.
Just bring like a piss bag and bring in a couple clubs. Gin and tonic. You remember Club, like Mudslide, the little alcoholic? They came in like the little V8 cans. They come in those like little cocktail.
Okay, yeah.
Cocktail in a can. Dude, one time not too long ago, I smuggled when Dr. Sleep with Ewan McGregor was in theaters. That was a 3-hour movie too. I smuggled like 6 of them. I wore like big tube socks. I just had them loaded up, just like chut. And I fucking had 6 gin and tonics in this theater, and I was fucking lit. Dude, Doctor Strange, or not Doctor Strange, Doctor Sleep was awesome in the theater.
Is that when you pissed your pants, or?
No, I never pissed my pants.
Oh, I thought you were about to say that's when you pissed your pants.
No.
Did you piss in the
in the theater? Oh yeah, not in my seat though.
Wait, what do you mean? You pissed in the can?
No, I pissed at the theater, and I used the John when I had to take a piss.
Why didn't you just piss in one of the 6 cans you brought with you in your seat?
They were tiny. They were little. It would have been like
you got 6
Dumb and Dumber. I have like these 6 fucking little cans of piss. You've been sucking back on Grandpa's cough medicine. Give me that. Now, one time my nephew threw up, like projectile vomiting. We went to watch the new Terminator whenever that came out. The last one where Linda Hamilton came back. We were sitting down and he just like it just shot out. He didn't make like a vomit noise. It was like it was like Double Dare. You know when the slime comes down? It was it was just it was out, and I was like, oh shit! It was like an involuntary response, and it just kept like fountaining out. And I was there with my wife, and I was like, he's your nephew. I didn't want to touch him and shit. I was like, we gotta go. And we go down the stairs, and he's got all this puke down his shirt and his all down his arms, and he starts just flicking it like he's like wringing like a wet dog. He's like wringing his fucking dude. Then he goes down. God. My wife's like, okay, go into the bathroom, clean yourself up. And he stinks really bad too. And he goes into the bathroom, and this dude like fast walks out, and he's like, gah! Like
oh fuck. Oh my god.
Yeah. I might edit this out because I think he listens, and I don't know if he'll be embarrassed by that, but he was young. It was fun. Yeah, I think he had like eggs and sausage and orange juice, and he was sick, but he thought if he ate something like, oh, I just need to eat something, but he was actually sick.
You're sick. Nearly sick.
So that came out fresh because we went to a matinee. So that was pretty brutal.
I've been there. That's a rough feeling.
I felt so bad for him
because
that sucks.
What you describe as like a spontaneous vomit.
Yeah.
He was probably holding it down for a while, like boop, boop.
Yeah.
And then he finally just boop.
Yeah, in hindsight, he did look a little out of sorts. Like
just sweating.
Like Norm Macdonald when they take the fucking brownies in the car, he's just like
I think I feel a slight itch. Maybe not.
He was supposed to keep driving. All right. Cool. Yeah. Let us know. You can email us at wax@waxingtheporpoise.com. Hate mail, please. Let us know what you thought of this episode. If you have any anecdotes about Mount Shasta, National Sunday Laws. Instagram is @waxingtheporpoise. Twitter is @waxingtheporp. Next week, we are having the aforementioned Chris is coming back, along with Staring John, to discuss what Chris claims is the superior film to Jaws, Orca from 1977. So I like Orca. Orca's pretty badass, but it's not better than Jaws. I'll affirm that right here and now. But I haven't seen Orca in probably a decade, so we'll see how it goes. But it's a more brutal, violent, bloody Jaws, basically. So
I haven't seen either, so I guess I got my work cut out for me.
Yeah, I guess the gauntlet wasn't really thrown down. Is it a better film? But if you can squeeze it in, I would watch Jaws first and then watch this. But it's not required viewing at all. So yeah, that'll be next week. Thanks for joining us, and we will see you when we see you, and we'll see you later.